Moonlight spilled across the palace courtyard like liquid silver, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch toward her, hungry and watchful. Illyra's pulse drummed in her ears as she pressed herself against the cold stone wall, her breath shallow, the echo of distant footsteps teasing her panic. Every instinct screamed that the palace, grand, imposing, and suffocatingly opulent, was no longer a place of safety. She had memorized the corridors, the guards' rotations, the hidden nooks where she could hide for a heartbeat longer than anyone expected. Tonight she had to slip past them all. Tonight freedom was the only choice. A sharp whistle sliced through the night air. Her heart lurched. A lone guard prowled the shadows, the glint of metal at his side catching the moonlight. She froze, counting silently, steps shallow and deliberate. If he noticed her, Illyra's hand drifted to the dagger concealed in her boot. She didn't want to fight, not tonight, not if she could avoid it. And yet, as the guard's gaze swept over her hiding spot, instinct flared, a deep inhale, then a decision. She darted. The chase was a dance of shadows. She slipped past the fountain where water whispered secrets, vaulting low walls and slipping through narrow archways. Her mind raced, recalling every guard she had observed during her forced weeks in this gilded cage. And then a hand shot out, catching her wrist. "Hold it right there." A voice commanded, low, steady. Authoritative, panic surged, and in an impulse born of desperation and instinct, Illyra pressed her lips to the stranger's. The world seemed to tilt, the warmth of the kiss, the shock of skin against skin, and then release. The guard stumbled back, startled, eyes wide. She bolted before he could speak, heart hammering, breath ragged. But a single glance over her shoulder told her he was watching, studying, not attacking. Something in his posture, restrained almost, reluctant, she didn't have time to question it. Her legs carried her through the winding corridors of the palace like a shadow fleeing the dawn, every step bringing her closer to the unknown, further from the life she had been forced to live. The night air hit her face when she finally emerged into the outer gardens, cool and biting. Freedom tasted like danger, and she inhaled it greedily. But even as she vanished into the trees beyond the palace walls, a single thought clawed at the edges of her mind, the guard. There was something about him, something she couldn't name, and she couldn't shake the feeling that her desperate kiss had changed everything. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying the promise of both peril and desire. Style notes, cinematic, third, person narrative, blend of inner thought, narration, and tension. Cliffhanger implied with the mysterious guard and Illyra's flight. Illyra's lungs burned as she darted through the moonlit forest just beyond the palace walls, branches scratching her arms and tangling in her hair. She didn't dare look back, but the echo of footsteps, faster now, deliberate, told her she wasn't alone. Someone was following, her mind raced. Every plan she had rehearsed crumbled with each heartbeat. There was no time, no clever trick that could buy her the seconds she needed. And then, almost impossibly, he emerged from the shadows, a figure tall, imposing, yet strangely familiar. His hand shot out, gripping her arm with startling strength. Stop, the command was sharp, but something in his tone, restrained, calculated, panic twisted in her chest. The forest offered no sanctuary. No help, her mind screamed at her to flee, but her feet betrayed her, stalling just enough for desperation to take hold. And then the impulse struck, a wild, irrational idea. Illyra pressed her lips to his in a hurried, frantic kiss. Shock shot through her as his eyes widened, dark and unreadable. For a fraction of a heartbeat, the world stilled. The cold night, the whispering leaves, the distant palace all vanished. Only the warmth of him remained, an anchor in her chaos. He stumbled back, momentarily disoriented, one hand hovering near her shoulder as if unsure whether to push her away or hold her. Illyra pulled back, breathless, her chest heaving. I needed. She started, words tangling in the rush of fear. I had no choice. He didn't speak. He just stared, a flicker of something, confusion, irritation, maybe even something she dared not name, playing across his features. His eyes, golden and sharp under the moonlight, seemed to pierce right through her. You're reckless, he said finally, his voice low, controlled, yet undeniably aware of the heat simmering between them. Do you even know what you've done? Illyra swallowed hard, shaking her head. I didn't want to. I had to get away. A pause. The forest seemed to hold its breath with them, And then, without another word, he let go of her wrist, stepping back into the shadows. But he didn't disappear entirely. He lingered, watching, as though deciding whether she was an enemy, a liability, or something else entirely. Her legs tensed. She wanted to run, to escape into the safety of the unknown. But the image of him, standing there in the moonlight, refused to leave her mind. Something about him, his strength, his restraint, the unspoken authority, pulled at her in ways she couldn't explain, and as the distant howl of a lone wolf echoed through the trees, Alara realized with a pang of both fear and something far more dangerous, that her actions had set a chain of events she could not control in motion. The night had shifted, and she had no idea who she could trust, not even the man she had just kissed. Highlights and style notes, strong emotional tension, an inner thought of heroine. Immediate romantic friction introduced with subtle attraction. Cliffhanger, uncertainty of Guard's identity and her growing intrigue. Dawn was still a faint glow on the horizon when Alara finally slowed her frantic pace, slipping through the last tangle of forest toward what she hoped was freedom. But the air had changed. The forest no longer felt like sanctuary. The faintest scent of musk and iron reached her nose, making her skin prickle. Before she could react, strong hands gripped her shoulders, spinning her around. Her heart stuttered in panic, but then she froze. The man from the forest stood before her, his expression unreadable, golden eyes glinting with something she couldn't name. "You didn't run far," he said, voice low, calm, almost amused. She started, but her words caught in her throat. She expected anger, chains, punishment. Instead, he stepped back, allowing her space, yet his presence was impossibly commanding. "Why are you here?" she demanded, trying to mask the tremor in her voice. "Maybe to make sure you survive the night," he replied cryptically, eyes never leaving hers. There was something in the way he moved, deliberate and restrained, as if every step was measured not to harm, but also not to relinquish control. Alara tried to assess him, every muscle taut with tension. His uniform, so simple yet perfectly fitted, belied strength, authority, and secrets. He wasn't just a guard. Something about the way he held himself, the calm calculation in his gaze, set her nerves on edge. "Am I captured?" she asked, swallowing hard. The words tasted bitter. "You're not exactly free," he said carefully, "but I don't intend to hurt you." Her brow furrowed. "Then why are you here? Why follow me?" The corner of his mouth curved into the faintest smirk. "Because someone needs to make sure you don't get into more trouble than you already have." Alara's pulse raced, not just from fear, but from something deeper, more confusing. He was dangerous, undeniably so. Yet there was restraint, almost tenderness, in the way he studied her. It unsettled her in ways she didn't want to admit. She wanted answers. She wanted freedom. But most of all, she wanted to understand the man who had stopped her escape with nothing more than a look, a presence, and an enigmatic calm that made her knees weak. And as she realized she could not shake the feeling that he wasn't who he seemed, a cold realization crept over her. She was no longer merely running from the palace. She was stepping into the unknown with someone she couldn't yet trust, watching her every move. The forest around them seemed suddenly silent, holding its breath, as if it knew the night's game was far from over. Highlights and style notes maintained suspense while deepening intrigue around the guard's true identity. Build slow, burn tension between heroine and enigmatic figure. Sets up cliffhanger, heroine isn't free, but isn't fully captured, creating uncertainty and anticipation. The forest's shadows stretched long beneath the rising sun as Alara followed the man. No, the guard, through a hidden trail she hadn't noticed before. Every step felt heavy, each rustle of leaves like a whisper of warning. She tried to read him, calm, controlled, yet there was an intensity in his gaze that made her stomach twist. Finally, they reached a secluded glade, sunlight breaking through the canopy in thin, golden shafts. He stopped, turning to face her fully. What are you?" Alara demanded, her voice firmer than she felt. "Why are you following me? Why didn't you stop me in the forest?" His expression shifted, subtle but undeniable. A shadow of amusement, then seriousness. You've been running without knowing the rules, he said slowly, and rules exist for a reason. Her pulse quickened. There was authority in him, something far beyond a simple palace guard. And then he spoke, words that froze her mid-step. You don't understand, I am not just a guard. Illyra's brows knitted in confusion. Then what are you? He inhaled, a flicker of hesitation crossing his golden eyes before he leaned closer, lowering his voice to a level only she could hear. I am the Alpha Prince. The words hit her like ice water. Alpha, Prince. The titles collided in her mind with everything she thought she knew about the palace, about the man who had stopped her escape. Her breath caught. The guard, her captor, her rescuer, was royalty, and not just royalty, but someone she could not even begin to imagine approaching safely. She stumbled backward, disbelief and fear mingling. You're the prince, she whispered, voice trembling. Yes, he said simply, eyes locking with hers. And now you understand why your actions are more dangerous than you realize. Illyra's mind raced. The palace, the guards, the way he had stopped her with restraint instead of force. It all clicked into place. He was not merely a man enforcing rules. He was a king in waiting, a predator wrapped in human form. And yet, there was something in the way he watched her, careful, calculating, almost protective. Her chest tightened as adrenaline and confusion collided. She wanted to run, to flee into the safety of the unknown. But she couldn't, not entirely. Something about him, the raw authority, the subtle care, held her in place. You need to understand. He continued, stepping closer, voice dropping into a low, compelling growl. The world you think you're running into is far more dangerous than this forest, and you are more valuable than you realize. Illyra swallowed hard, a shiver running down her spine. The man she had kissed in desperation, the one who had let her flee, and yet watched her so intently, was not merely a guard. He was a prince, a powerful alpha, and she had no idea what she had just stumbled into. The forest seemed suddenly quieter, the shadows deeper, as if holding its breath along with her. And somewhere in the corner of her mind, a single thought burned hotter than fear or confusion. She had just made a choice that would change everything. Highlights and style notes reveals the guard's secret identity as Alpha Prince, heightened stakes and tension while keeping forbidden attraction simmering. Cliffhanger, heroine realizes the danger she's in and the complexity of the bond forming. The hidden trail ended at a side entrance of the palace, long forgotten by most, where ivy clung to cold stone and the scent of old magic lingered in the air. Illyra's heart thumped, a mixture of fear and curiosity, as the Alpha Prince, still shrouded in the guise of his guard, motioned her forward. You need to see this, he murmured, his golden eyes scanning the shadows. Not everything is as it seems inside these walls. Her pulse quickened. She followed him through narrow corridors and silent chambers, each more lavish and oppressive than the last. Flickering torchlight revealed tapestries depicting battles, alliances, and secrets she had never been told. And then she noticed the subtle signs, hidden doors, shadowed alcoves, servants moving in whispers rather than speech. A sudden creak echoed down a hall, and they froze. A pair of courtiers passed, murmuring urgently, eyes darting toward the ornate doors ahead. Illyra barely breathed, hiding in a small niche as the Alpha Prince moved beside her, calm, every movement deliberate, watching, calculating. What are they plotting? She whispered, barely audible. Schemes that could destroy more than you or me. He replied softly, voice low, steady, power struggles, betrayals. This palace is a chessboard, and most of its players are blind to the consequences of their moves. Illyra's gaze followed him as he pressed a hidden latch, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling downward into darkness. The air grew cooler, heavier, and a faint metallic scent. Blood, perhaps, tickled her senses. Her stomach tightened. Why show me this? She asked, a mixture of suspicion and awe. Why involve me? He paused, turning to study her. Because the danger isn't just above ground. The secrets you stumble upon here, they'll define who survives and who doesn't. And if you're going to move in this world, you need to understand it. She swallowed hard, feeling the weight of his words. She had run for freedom, believing the forest could shield her, but now she realized the palace itself was a labyrinth of whispers, hidden plots, and silent threats, and she was in the middle of it, unprepared, untrained, yet somehow vital to the game. The shadows seemed to thicken around them as they descended further, each step echoing like a drumbeat of tension. Alara's mind raced. What did he know that she didn't, and what had drawn him to her in the first place, if not more than duty or curiosity? Somewhere in the depths of the palace, a secret waited, a truth that could topple alliances, shatter trust, and ignite a fire neither of them were ready to face. And as the Alpha Prince led her silently through the hidden corridors, she realized with a chill that the night's dangers were far from over, and the shadows held more than whispers. They held the future of them both. Highlights and style notes: expands palace intrigue, secret passageways, and hidden plots. Deepens heroine's realization of danger and complexity of palace politics. Builds tension and suspense for rising conflict. Subtle foreshadowing of betrayal and power struggles. The hidden corridors of the palace felt alive with whispers, each stone seeming to hold its own secrets. Alara's pulse had barely slowed from the descent into the shadowed halls, yet her thoughts kept returning to him, the Alpha Prince, though she still couldn't fully reconcile the man she had kissed in desperation with the commanding figure beside her now. Every step he took was precise, controlled, his golden eyes scanning the darkness while his presence pressed against her in a way that made her skin prickle. She tried to focus on the secrets they were uncovering, the scheming nobles and hidden passages, but she couldn't stop noticing the subtleties, the brush of his hand against hers when he guided her, the way his gaze lingered a second too long, or how he seemed to anticipate her every move. A flicker of torchlight revealed a small chamber tucked behind a tapestry. The prince motioned for her to step inside. Dust motes floated in the air, and the room smelled faintly of old parchment and candle wax. He closed the door softly behind them. "Alara," he said, voice low, commanding yet gentle. "Do you understand what you're seeing?" She nodded, trying to steady her racing heart. "Yes, I think I'm starting to." Her eyes flicked to his, and in that moment the world seemed to shrink. She felt the heat in her chest, the way her pulse leapt at the thought of him. He moved closer, just enough that the faint warmth of his presence brushed hers. "You're observant," he murmured, voice dropping almost to a growl. "But more than that, you're brave." Alara swallowed hard, trying to mask the tremor in her voice. "I have to be. I don't have a choice." He studied her, golden eyes unreadable, and for a heartbeat, time itself seemed suspended. Then his gaze softened just slightly, and she felt it, a connection she hadn't expected, one that both thrilled and terrified her. It was a dangerous thing to feel desire toward a man of his power, a man whose touch could ignite flames in both mind and body. A sound in the hallway snapped her back to reality, a servant's footstep, soft but deliberate. The prince's head turned sharply, alert. His hand grazed hers as if to steady her, and the brief contact sent a jolt of electricity straight through her. "Alara," he whispered, voice almost too low to hear, "you need to remember, not everything here is safe." Her lips parted, words caught in her throat, and she realized with a mix of fear and longing that every glance, every brush of his hand, every shared moment in the shadows was weaving a bond neither of them could ignore. The palace walls might contain secrets, but they could not contain the tension building between them. As they stepped back into the corridor, their eyes met once more, holding, burning with unspoken thoughts. And for the first time, Alara understood a terrifying truth. The danger wasn't just outside in the shadows. It was in the forbidden attraction pulsing between them. A shiver ran down her spine, and she knew that the next time their hands brushed or their eyes locked, neither of them might be able to resist what was rising beneath the surface. Highlights and style notes intensifies the slow, burn romance with subtle touches and lingering glances. Balances palace intrigue with emotional tension and forbidden attraction. Ends on a subtle cliffhanger, growing bond that both excites and threatens the heroine. The corridors of the palace seemed quieter than usual, yet every shadow carried a threat. Alara's steps were cautious, her senses heightened as if the walls themselves whispered secrets she was never meant to hear. She had begun to understand the palace's pulse, the hushed conversations, the stolen glances, the subtle power plays, but nothing had prepared her for the betrayal waiting in plain sight. A faint rustle behind a tapestry caught her attention. She froze, heart hammering. The Alpha Prince, walking just a pace behind her, noticed the hesitation and shifted, moving protectively closer without breaking stride. His presence was a silent reassurance, yet it also reminded her of the dangerous tension simmering between them, a desire that was forbidden, yet impossible to ignore. "Alara," he murmured, voice low, "keep your eyes open. Not everyone here is as loyal as they appear." She swallowed hard. "I know," she whispered. The words barely carried over the sound of their careful footsteps. "But who can I trust?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, his gaze swept the dim hallway, alert, calculating. "No one entirely, and that's why you must be careful. Someone in this palace wants to see you fail, or worse, be destroyed." The warning sent a shiver down her spine. She thought of the nobles who had watched her in the court, their polite smiles hiding sharp teeth. She thought of the servants who lingered just a moment too long, whispers carried like poison on the air, and she thought of the kiss. The desperate, reckless kiss she had given the man now revealed as the Alpha Prince, and how it might complicate everything. Suddenly, voices drifted from an open doorway ahead. Alara strained to listen. "She's dangerous," one voice said, smooth and cold. "If the prince discovers what she knows, it could ruin everything." "Deal with her," another replied. "Make sure she's out of the way before the blood moon rises." Alara's blood ran cold. She glanced at the prince, his jaw tightened, eyes narrowing. Whatever he had known before, now he understood fully. The court was plotting, and she was at the center of it. He caught her hand, gripping it just enough to steady her, and the warmth of his touch contrasted sharply with the chill of fear creeping through her. "Stay close," he commanded. "I won't let them hurt you, not while I'm here." Her pulse quickened, not only from fear but from the heat of his proximity. There was trust in his words, a promise that both reassured and unnerved her. Every instinct screamed caution, yet every nerve sang in recognition of him, of the bond she had yet to understand. As they slipped into the shadows, avoiding prying eyes, Alara realized a terrifying truth. Betrayal was closer than she had imagined, and the palace she had once dreamed of escaping had become a labyrinth of lies, schemes, and dangerous secrets. And in the quiet corners, the whispers promised one thing, nothing, and no one could be trusted. Highlights and style notes, introduces betrayal and court intrigue, increasing stakes. Heightens tension between heroine and Alpha Prince as protector, and forbidden attraction intensifies. Ends on suspenseful cliffhanger, hidden enemies, danger rising before the blood moon. The moon hung low over the palace gardens, casting silver light across marble statues and manicured hedges. Alara's steps faltered as the Alpha Prince's presence closed the space between them. He didn't speak immediately, letting the silence stretch, heavy with unspoken authority and something far more dangerous, desire. "Alara." He said finally, voice low, almost a growl, "You've been reckless. The world you're stepping into doesn't forgive mistakes, and your escape, your decisions, they've drawn attention we cannot afford." Her stomach tightened. "I didn't mean to." "You act as if consequences don't matter." He interrupted sharply, "But they do, and now I must insist on something." His golden eyes held hers, unflinching, commanding. "You will follow my orders. No more secrets, no more rash decisions." Alara swallowed, the weight of his words pressing down. She wanted freedom to run and make her own choices, but she also felt the gravity in his command. Something in his stance, in the way his gaze held her, made disobedience impossible. Not just dangerous, but unthinkable. She hesitated, caught between fear and attraction. "I will try." "Try is not enough," he said, stepping closer. His presence enveloped her, and with it came a pull she could neither resist nor understand. "I need obedience because if you falter, someone will exploit it, and I cannot allow that." Her throat tightened, every instinct screamed for independence, yet every nerve tingled under his proximity. The Alpha Prince was more than a man. He was a force, dangerous and magnetic, and she was painfully aware of how close she had come to falling. Emotionally, irreversibly. Why? Why do you care? She whispered, voice trembling. His jaw tightened. Because I cannot, because my duty, my blood, my pack demands it, and because I cannot let anyone harm you. The last words were softer, almost private, yet carried a weight that made her heart stutter. Elara looked down, aware of the electricity between them. She knew he demanded obedience, but beneath it was a tension she couldn't ignore, a bond simmering, growing stronger with each shared glance, each brush of their hands in the shadows. The wind stirred the night, rustling leaves and carrying distant palace sounds. She felt exposed, not just to the dangers outside, but to the vulnerability she could no longer hide from the prince. And though fear and desire warred within her, she realized that obeying him might be the only way to survive, and perhaps the only way to explore what was quietly blooming between them. Then we begin, he said, his voice final, leaving no room for argument. And you stay close, always. Elara's pulse quickened not entirely from fear. The night was alive with tension, with danger, with forbidden attraction. And somewhere deep inside she knew that following him, despite every instinct screaming caution, was the only choice she could make. Highlights and style notes shows the alpha asserting authority while deepening forbidden tension, balances fear, trust, and simmering romantic attraction, ends on subtle cliffhanger, obedience demanded, bond intensifying. The palace courtyards were bathed in crimson as the blood moon rose, casting everything in an eerie, otherworldly glow. Elara shivered, not from the chill of the night, but from the sense of something awakening deep within her, a presence she hadn't understood until now. The Alpha Prince moved beside her silently, his golden eyes reflecting the red light, alert, powerful, and impossibly close. Elara, stay with me, he murmured, his voice low, commanding, yet threaded with urgency. Tonight nothing is as it seems. Her chest tightened, she could feel it. A pull in her veins, a thrum in her pulse that wasn't fear. Something ancient, something wild, and with it came a realization. She was not just running from danger. She was part of a force she had never acknowledged. The moment her gaze met his, the world seemed to shift. The air hummed, the forest of shadows stretching around them thickened, and a strange warmth coursed through her. Her hands trembled involuntarily, and she realized with a jolt that her body was responding to the moon, to the power she had never tapped, to the bond with the Alpha beside her. You're feeling it, he said, his eyes locking onto hers. The connection, it's stronger than I anticipated. Elara blinked. Connection, she whispered, voice shaking. I don't understand. He stepped closer, his presence pressing against her like gravity, undeniable and commanding. We are bound, Elara, more than desire, more than attraction. The blood moon awakens what is already fated, our bond. It's real, it's dangerous, and it's powerful. Her breath caught. The intensity of his gaze, the heat radiating from him, the pulse of something primal between them, it all collided in a way that made her weak, yet focused. Her hidden strength, her untapped abilities, surged under the crimson light, uncontainable, terrifying, exhilarating. A howl pierced the night, a reminder that the world outside, the palace, the pack, and the rivals scheming in shadows were all watching, waiting for her to falter. And yet, for the first time, she felt the potential to fight back, to claim her power, to stand not just beside the Alpha Prince, but with him. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face, and the touch sent a shiver through her spine. Do you feel it, this power? It's yours to control, and together we can face what's coming. Elara nodded, though her heart raced with uncertainty and awe. The blood moon revealed truths, awakened abilities, and faded connections she had never imagined. And in that moment, amid the crimson glow, she realized something even more dangerous than her own power. The pull she felt toward him, the unspoken bond that neither distance nor danger could break. The forest and palace seemed suspended in crimson silence, holding their breath, and somewhere deep inside, Elara knew this night would change everything, for her, for the Alpha Prince, and for the destiny they were now bound to face together. Highlights and style notes, supernatural escalation with blood moon awakening latent powers. Strengthens fated bond and romantic tension with the Alpha Prince. Cliffhanger, powers awakened, destiny intertwined, tension and danger rising. Dawn's pale light crept through the palace windows, but the warmth of the sun could not touch the chill in Alara's chest. The events of the blood moon still pulsed in her veins, her powers awakened, her bond with the Alpha Prince undeniable, and yet doubt clawed at her heart like a sharpened claw. She had overheard whispers, fragments of conversations she wasn't meant to hear. Servants and courtiers spoke in hushed tones, casting glances toward her with suspicion, fear, and perhaps malice. And in the midst of it all, a single word struck her like a dagger: betrayal. Her mind raced. Had the Alpha Prince hidden something from her? The thought seared her chest, a bitter twist she could not ignore. She remembered his calm, commanding presence, his golden eyes full of authority, but now they felt distant, elusive. The warmth she had felt under the blood moon was overshadowed by a cold question. Could she trust him? She confronted him in the quiet of the palace courtyard, words trembling on her lips. Why didn't you tell me everything? Why am I finding out pieces of your plans from others? He paused, his jaw tightening, eyes flickering with emotion. Alara, it's not what you think. Then what is it? She demanded, frustration and hurt lacing every syllable. Am I just a pawn to you or something to manipulate? The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. He stepped closer, hands reaching out, but she flinched, the betrayal cutting deeper than any sword. I didn't want to put you in danger. He finally admitted, voice low, raw, every secret I kept. It was to protect you. Her chest heaved, torn between anger and the undeniable pull of her bond with him. Protect me, she whispered, by keeping me in the dark, by letting me risk everything without knowing. He looked down, golden eyes shadowed with regret and longing. I had no choice. The court, the rivals, the pack politics. You couldn't be prepared for it, and I couldn't let anyone harm you. For a heartbeat, the tension between them held, taut as a drawn bow. And then, despite her fear, despite the anger, Alara felt the familiar pull, the bond tightening, a magnetic force she could not resist. She looked into his eyes and saw not just an alpha, not just a prince, but a man bound to her fate as much as she was bound to his. I don't know if I can trust you, she admitted, voice breaking, the vulnerability raw. He reached for her hand again, this time slower, deliberate, letting her see the sincerity in his touch. Then don't, yet, but I will earn it. I promise you, Alara, I will never betray what we share. Her pulse stuttered, uncertainty mingling with the ache of longing. She wanted to believe him, needed to believe him, but the palace was full of shadows, and even the strongest bond could be tested. And as the distant howl of a wolf cut through the morning air, Alara realized with a pang that trust, once shattered, was a fragile thing, and the path ahead would demand courage she wasn't sure she possessed. Highlights and style notes, emotional low point, doubt, fear, and the first serious challenge to trust. Strengthens tension between heroine and alpha prince while deepening romantic stakes. Cliffhanger, trust fractured, stakes for future conflict heightened. The palace was alive with tension, every corridor humming with whispers, footsteps, and the distant clash of metal. Alira's heart pounded, her newfound powers thrumming under her skin, a storm of energy that matched the chaos unfolding around them. The Alpha Prince moved beside her, every step precise, commanding, and utterly lethal. Together they were a force, but even so, the danger was overwhelming. Stay close, he commanded, eyes scanning the hallways like a predator. His voice held an edge that made her pulse leap, not just fear, but anticipation. The bond between them tightened, magnetic and undeniable. They rounded a corner to see their rivals, masked and armed, attempting to seize the palace's inner sanctum. The prince didn't hesitate. In a blur, he shifted, muscles rippling, golden eyes blazing, fangs glinting in the torchlight. His alpha aura surged, and the attackers faltered, caught off guard by the raw power radiating from him. Alara's own body responded instinctively. She drew on the energy the blood moon had awakened within her, flames of power coiling through her veins. She felt stronger, braver, as if the danger had unlocked something primal. Together, she and the prince became a storm of movement and force, their motions in perfect sync, almost instinctual. "Cover me," he growled, fangs bared, as a rival lunged toward her. She dodged, sidestepped, and countered with newfound precision, her powers flaring in controlled bursts. Shock and fear painted the intruders' faces. They had underestimated her. Yet amidst the chaos, she caught a glimpse of him, more than a warrior. His focus, his protective instincts, his fierce desire to shield her at every turn. The heat between them surged, a tether stronger than the battle around them, binding them in silent, unspoken trust. A knife whistled past her ear, and she spun, narrowly avoiding it, adrenaline and attraction coiling in equal measure. The Alpha Prince intercepted the attacker, growling in a low, dangerous warning that sent shivers down her spine. She had never seen power like this, control so absolute, desire and danger wrapped into one perfect form. In the aftermath of the skirmish, breathless and flushed, the two of them stood amidst the scattered enemies, victorious but aware the threat had not ended. Every glance exchanged between them spoke of unspoken words, promises, and the undeniable bond that had been forged in fire, blood, and shared danger. Elara realized, with a mix of awe and fear, that the battle had revealed more than the enemies. They had revealed each other. Strength, trust, and desire intertwined in a way that made running, hiding, or denying the bond impossible, and somewhere deep in her chest, she knew the storm was far from over. The palace, the rivals, and the Alpha Prince's fated pull had set a course she could never escape. Highlights and style notes, action, packed chapter with palace battle, showcasing powers and teamwork, deepens romantic tension through shared danger and protective instincts, cliffhanger, external threats subdued but stakes remain, bond strengthened. The aftermath of the battle left the palace corridors eerily silent, the echoes of skirmishes fading like distant thunder. Elara's chest heaved, her body alive with adrenaline, her senses tingling with the lingering pulse of the blood moon. She could still feel the Alpha Prince's presence behind her, a magnetic force she could neither resist nor fully comprehend. He stepped close, his golden eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that made her knees weaken. "Elara," he murmured, voice low and rough with emotion, "do you feel it? The bond? It's not just proximity, it's destiny, it's claiming us." Her throat tightened. She had felt it before, in fleeting touches, in lingering glances, in the surge of power during the battle. But now it was undeniable, raw, and overwhelming. The bond thrummed through her, unyielding, powerful, tying her essence to his in a way that both thrilled and terrified her. I feel it," she whispered, trembling. "It's overwhelming." He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face, fingers lingering against her skin. The touch ignited a fire beneath her ribs, a heat that matched the blood moon's lingering glow. "It's meant to be," he said, voice barely audible, "and it can't be ignored." Her pulse raced, not only from the physical closeness but from the undeniable pull of fate. The connection between them surged, a wave of energy that made her dizzy and exhilarated all at once. She could feel his heartbeat, his breath, his raw power aligning with hers, and a single thought struck her. This bond was irreversible. The Alpha Prince lowered his head, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his breath against her lips. "Elara, you are mine," he whispered, a declaration and a promise intertwined, "as I am yours." Her heart stuttered, a mixture of fear, desire, and awe flooding through her. The mate bond, a force neither of them could resist, pulled tighter, resonating with every heartbeat, every nerve, every hidden corner of her being. She realized with a shiver that the bond was more than power. It was trust, protection, and an unspoken promise of unity against the world's threats. And then, in a moment that felt suspended in time, their hands intertwined, the bond flaring between them, sealing a connection that would not be broken. The palace, the rivals, the court intrigues, all of it faded into insignificance. Only the pull between them remained, raw, consuming, and utterly fated. Elara inhaled sharply, a mixture of fear and exhilaration tightening in her chest. The mate bond had awakened, and with it came clarity, purpose, and a depth of emotion she had never imagined. They were bound, not by choice, but by destiny, and together they would face whatever the shadows of the palace or the forces beyond dared to throw at them. The world had shifted. The Alpha Prince and Illyra were no longer separate entities navigating danger. They were one, intertwined by power, desire, and an unbreakable bond. And as they stood amidst the lingering echoes of the battle, she realized with certainty there was no turning back. Highlights and style notes. Mating bond awakening elevates romance and supernatural stakes. Emotional and sensual tension heightened while remaining narrative. Focused, cliffhanger potential, bond fully realized, but external threats still loom. The grand hall of the palace was alive with murmurs and cautious glances, nobles and courtiers moving with a subtle unease. The recent threats, the whispered betrayals, and the unrest within the court had all led to this moment, one that would change the course of the palace forever. Illyra stood beside the Alpha Prince, her pulse racing, her senses heightened. The bond between them pulsed like a living thing, the mating connection undeniable, glowing beneath the surface in a way that neither of them could hide. She could feel the strength radiating from him, the raw power tempered by something tender, something wholly protective. The Alpha Prince's eyes swept over the gathered court, golden and commanding, and a silence fell that felt almost sacred. "Everyone," he began, voice low but carrying through the hall, "hear me clearly. No more whispers, no more doubt. Illyra is my mate." Gasps echoed through the room, followed by stunned silence. Eyes widened, jaws dropped, but no one dared interrupt. The words carried weight beyond mere declaration. They were a binding, a claim, and a promise all at once. Illyra felt her cheeks flush, heat pooling in her chest. She had anticipated the shock, but not the raw intensity of seeing the Alpha Prince's golden gaze fixed entirely on her, protective and possessive in a way that made her knees weak. One of the rivals, attempting a sly remark, faltered under the weight of the Alpha's authority. He stepped closer to her, placing a hand gently at the small of her back, a subtle yet deliberate gesture that radiated ownership and reassurance. "No one will challenge this bond," he said, voice low, dangerous. "You will all respect it, or face consequences you cannot survive." Illyra's heart thudded as she realized the full implications. The palace, the court, the scheming nobles, all of it shifted in that single declaration. She was no longer just a pawn in their games. She was the mate of the Alpha Prince, recognized, protected, and bound by something far greater than politics. Her gaze met his, and in that silent exchange there was everything she needed: trust, love, desire, and the unspoken promise that no matter the danger, no matter the intrigue still lurking in shadows, they would face it together. The court held its collective breath, the air thick with awe and tension, until one by one, whispers faded into reluctant acknowledgement. And for the first time in the palace's long history, the union of Alpha and mate was unassailable, a public declaration that silenced doubt and cemented their bond. As the Alpha Prince gently led her to the center of the hall, Illyra felt the pulse of their connection, steady, strong, and enduring. She realized then, with a mixture of relief and exhilaration, that the most dangerous battles had passed, and what remained was a life intertwined, a destiny claimed, and a future together that no one could undo. Highlights and style notes. Publicly claims the heroine as the mate, silencing rivals and establishing a setup. Balances court intrigue, tension, and romantic payoff. Emphasizes bond strength and trust while maintaining narrative tension. The first light of dawn spilled gently over the palace, golden rays glinting off marble columns and sparkling in the dew-laden gardens. The air, once thick with tension, now felt calm, almost serene, as though the world itself was exhaling after weeks of scheming, danger, and uncertainty. Illyra stood on the balcony, the soft morning breeze brushing her hair across her face. She felt the Alpha Prince behind her, strong and steady, the bond between them thrumming with quiet warmth. No longer was there the shadow of fear, the gnawing tension of betrayal or intrigue. Everything that had threatened them, the rival factions, the whispered plots, the hidden dangers, had been faced, survived, and overcome. He stepped closer, wrapping a protective arm around her waist, and she leaned against him, her cheek resting against his chest. "The palace feels different now," she murmured, voice soft, almost reverent, peaceful. He pressed a kiss to her hair, golden eyes soft, filled with something deeper than authority or desire, something unshakable. "It is," he agreed, "and it will remain so as long as we stand together. The threats are gone, and what remains is ours." Alara smiled, a small, genuine smile that had nothing to hide. She felt the truth of it, the bond, the connection, the love that had been tested in shadowed halls, under the blood moon, and in the heat of battle. Every challenge, every heartbreak, every near, Miss had led them here, to this dawn, to this quiet, tender peace. They lingered on the balcony, watching as the sun rose higher, bathing the gardens in light. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Alira allowed herself to imagine a life without fear. A life filled with the Alpha Prince at her side, their bond unbroken, their fates intertwined. "Thank you," she whispered, turning her gaze to him, "for everything, for protecting me, for trusting me, for choosing me." His hand cupped her cheek gently, thumb brushing her skin. "No, Alara," he said, voice steady and full of certainty. "Thank you for standing by me, for embracing your strength, for being my mate. We are stronger together, and this is only the beginning." The wind carried their quiet laughter across the palace, blending with birdsong and the rustle of leaves. Shadows that had once threatened now retreated, leaving only light, warmth, and the undeniable truth of their bond. And as the day fully broke over the palace, Alara felt a sense of completeness she had never known. The Alpha Prince beside her, the palace at peace, the world seeming vast yet safe. It was everything she had longed for, everything she had fought for, and the future, bright and untarnished, stretched before them, a life they would face together, side by side, heart to heart.